Good afternoon. It's been a long break. I just got a new intro video. If you saw that, I've been working on it. I was gonna hire it out, but I think I'm happy with that. I didn't think I was gonna be able to make one just using Adobe Express, but it turned out okay. I might still hire someone to do one that has to do more with the logo. But yeah, I have a new logo. If you can see, there's a new watermark. It's very similar, just a little bit different, a little bit more me. And yeah, so welcome to your daily dose of salt and light with myself, Nadine Ness. I have a lot to cover. If I have a big smile on my face, it's because we had huge good news this morning. So Justin Trudeau has stepped down. He's resigning. Technically, he's still going to stay until the leadership race for the new party apparently. Anyways, I haven't actually listened to the video yet, so I was going to listen to it with you guys. Again, I have a hard time listening to his voice. If you're anything like me, it's like nails on a chalkboard. But anyways, it's good news. I know some people are out there are saying, well, I would have rather he stay on until, sorry, I'm just going to move my phone out of the way. Sometimes it interferes with the mic and you hear like real weird scratchy noise. But let me know if the sound is okay, if everything sounds great. If there's scratchiness, just let me know, and let me know where you're watching from. Sometimes I see things from Facebook. Sometimes I see things from Twitter. I'm gonna work a little bit better on making it so that I show the comments because I don't think everyone sees it if they're watching from a different platform. So if you're on Facebook, you won't see the comments from Twitter or vice versa. So I'll see if I can um, if I can show what's going to be happening anyways, and show the comments that people are commenting on. But I haven't watched it. I just heard he's resigning apparently. I think he's going to prorogue government. That might have been announced already. I was working on getting this episode ready. I've been off for from making a show. Like I said, during the Christmas holiday, my family and I were traveling. Then we had family visiting over. So we're just starting back fresh Monday to Friday. It's a little bit later today. I had an appointment this morning and I had to rush and get ready. So I'm going to try to make it between 12 and 1. But again, my family comes first. So sometimes it might be a little bit off like today. But yeah, there's a lot to cover. There's been a lot of drama in the last in the last few weeks, and I'm going to cover some of it today, not all of it. I want to dig into a little bit more and talk about the rape gangs that are happening in the UK and what's happening with that. But I haven't dug into it enough to really talk about it on this episode. I've just been following a little bit the talking about it, but there was a lot that happened over the Christmas holiday. I will talk about it. There was a lot of controversy with Elon Musk and Vivek and the immigration that they're pushing for. So I will touch a little bit into that and what my thoughts on immigration is. I know there's some people that are anti all immigration. I know there's some people who are only pro immigration if they're white. Yes, we actually have white nationalists in Canada. You've seen them very active on social media in the last little while. We have them in Canada, but also in the US. So I interacted with quite a few that I would say are openly racist. So, and then I'm going to talk also about Trudeau resigning and what I think that means, as well as what we can expect probably to come in the future. I haven't seen what Pierre Poilievre has said about it, but anyways, we'll start with the video. I'll just get it ready here. And again, let me know if something's not working out for sound and stuff. But this is the video from Trudeau that he did this morning. Here. There you go. We're going to listen to it together. I listened to the first few seconds, but I thought, you know what, I'll just wait and I'll share it with my viewers, see what he has to say.
So last night over dinner, I told my kids about the decision that I'm sharing with you today. I intend to resign as party leader, as prime minister, after the party selects its next leader through a robust, nationwide, competitive process. Last night, I asked the president of the Liberal Party to begin that process. This country deserves a real choice in the next election, and it has become clear to me that if I'm having to fight internal battles, I cannot be the best option in that election. So last night over dinner, I told my kids about the decision that I'm sharing with you today. I intend to resign as party leader, as prime minister, after the party selects its next leader through a robust, nationwide, competitive process. Last night, I asked the president of the Liberal Party to begin that process. This country deserves a real choice in the next election, and it has become clear to me that if I'm having to fight internal battles, I cannot be the best option in that election. So last night over dinner.
Did he repeat himself? Okay, few sorry, I'm still mulling over what I'm hearing. So he's not resigning yet. He's going to stay until there's a leadership race. We don't know how long that's going to be. I saw on Twitter some people saying in March. It kind of leads into another video I'm going to show you guys of Pierre Poilievre, but apparently he's going to stay in. So it's not like when O'Toole got booted out, O'Toole was done right away and someone from the Conservative Party had become the interim leader. That's not happening. So it's not a temporary person that's going to come in. And just so people know, when a temporary person comes in, they can't be running for the role. Like, at least it was the case with the CPC. I'm trying to remember what her name was. The lady with the blonde hair. It's going to bug me. So I'm going to quickly look it up. Is it Candace? Who was the interim leader of the Conservative Party before Pierre got elected as leader? Candace Bergen. Yeah, so she couldn't run. So whoever did it couldn't run. But in this case, he's not resigning now. He's going to stay on until the leadership race. So it's not as good news as I had hoped. I hoped he was going to take a walk in the snow. I tweeted about that. I said, who thinks Trudeau's going to take a walk in the snow? And I'll be honest, I'm actually completely surprised that he's doing this because it doesn't fit his profile. So there must be something more. I'm going to be conspiratorial here. There must be something more here that's kind of making him do this because it doesn't fit the narcissistic profile. Now, there's other things to note about this video that you might have noticed as well. Trudeau is not saying, he usually every few words says, I don't think he said a single one during the entire video. So it makes me wonder, was he reading from a teleprompter? He also looks like he's been crying all night. And I'm not saying that to make fun of him, but at the same time, after the years we've had under his regime, a lot of people's lives been completely destroyed. So I'm not sad that he's crying, or if he was. But anyways, he also has a red nose. It could be too that he smoked some weed before he came on screen because his eyes looks bloodshot. So could be not crying. I don't think narcissist people like that cry usually unless they're putting on a show, which he could be doing as well. But anyways, interesting. No ums, no just, but he did repeat himself. So so that means we're stuck with him a little while longer. Who do you think is going to make a run for the leader of the Liberal Party? I think Chrystia Freeland is. I'm not sure who else. It's going to be really interesting. Mark Carney, maybe. Maybe that's why he didn't take the position of finance minister. It's going to be interesting to see. I saw a few names thrown around, but I haven't had the chance to actually go look. But I'm glad he's leaving. Some people will say, well, we wish he would have stayed for another election because he would have gotten destroyed by Pierre, which is true. So we're like worst case scenario. He's not gone. He's staying until the leadership, but he's not running for the party leader in the next election. So that means we're stuck with him. But someone said that he's pro-rogue government, but I didn't see this in the explanation. I was hoping that was going to be explained. If somebody can say in the comments if you're seeing it, did he announce the proroguing of government, or is that coming? I know there was talks about that happening, but I guess I should have confirmed before. I'm going to see if I can find it quickly. Just see if I find something. I was hoping that would be explained. I should have probably watched it before. Okay. I need to. And this show is live. So if you're watching, why is she taking time to look things up? This is live. There's no editing. There's no cutting things out. I'm just going to search. But yeah, if somebody knows, feel free to let me know in the comments. I'm having a hard time seeing all the comments here. My screen's a bit weird right now. He mentioned. Global News explains it. Okay, so I'll just show here the comments. These comments are all on Facebook. So I'm not seeing any from Twitter, which is weird because usually I do. So if you're watching from Twitter, say something in the comments. I just want to make sure it is showing on Twitter. It says here that it is, but usually most of the comments are on Twitter. It's been prorogue. Okay. I did search it here. Okay. Here's someone talking about it. By proroguing Parliament, the Liberal Party of Canada wiped out 273 reports, bill, and acts. They burned all of their work and tried to save their own jobs. So someone's saying, that's not what I was looking for, but someone's saying that this was an attempt to hide some of the corruption stuff. Ooh, this is a good point that White Rabbit Warrior makes here. Here's the good news. If government is prorogued, every bill that we've been worried about dies on the floor, every single one. So Bill C 293, would that be one? Or that's right now in, is it that one in the Senate? I'll see what else they're saying about proroguing. Yeah, so he has prorogued it until Alexa Lavelle with Rebel News is saying he's prorogued it until the end of the Liberal leadership race. Interesting. There is a video I want to show you what Pierre had to say about that. This was before all of this announcement. Pierre just went on Jordan Peterson's show. I'm just trying to figure out which one do I. Where is it? Here you go. So this is the interview. If you haven't watched it, I highly recommend you do. It's an hour and 41 minutes long. I still have to finish it. I watched most of it, but I was cooking supper and my husband was listening to it in the background. So I haven't listened to every single word, but there is one section of it where he talks about, well, what if Justin Trudeau prorogues government? And Pierre has some really, really, really interesting words to say about that. But anyways, I just wanted to point out Rob Schneider. He's a comedian, actor. He says, it can't happen quick enough for all Canadians. Here is the next leader of Canada, Pierre Poilievre, who will soon replace the free speech denying tyrant globalist Justin Trudeau, which is so true. But Rob is making a comeback. He's having a lot of shows. Sorry, I have a fly. Having a lot of shows. He's become quite funny. There's a bit of history. He was kicked out of Regina event because they don't like jokes. They got all offended. I think he was doing COVID joke. It was like a health thing. Why would they pick him though? He's kind of like a controversial comedian, but you would think they would have been like a little bit more prepared. But anyways, there was a section in the video that I'm going to share with you guys that I thought was phenomenal. I just got to open it up here. And I was like shocked when Pierre said this. I'm like, finally, a politician that talks just like regular people. Some people will have a different opinion, but this is where we're at. This is how we really feel. I know if you watch me on my show, it's very rare that I'll say a bad word. I try to be really careful about not cussing and not saying even the S word that you're going to hear in this video. And I'm very careful too on Twitter. I try never to insult people. I don't call people names. Sometimes I will point out how they're not comprehending what I actually wrote, or they have comprehension issues, but that's about as bad as it gets. But anyways, this video, there is a bad word. I will warn you. It's not a super bad word, but it is a bad word nonetheless. So, but this was my favorite part of the whole interview.
So Parliament's back in late January. It will take some weeks to actually get a non-confidence vote onto the floor of the House of Commons. Then we'll see if Jagmeet Singh's latest promise of voting non-confidence was as insincere as his prior commitments to that effect.
When does his pension kick in?
In February. So he's now basically, he said yesterday that he would put forward a non-confidence motion at the earliest opportunity. Well, that's likely to be March, which is...
Oh, that's convenient.
Okay. And chooses a new replacement, a Trudeau 2.0.
Mm-hmm.
And so there would be a leadership race. God knows how long that would drag on for during...
You think approximately in March, no earlier than March as far as you can foresee.
Yeah, probably. And during which time we'd continue to flounder and twist in the wind. And by the way, you know, the Liberal media is all saying, well, surely you wouldn't want to trigger an election during a Liberal leadership race. Excuse me, the Canadian people are not obliged, 41 million people are not obliged to wait around while this party sorts out its shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, these guys could have got rid of Trudeau a year and a half ago. They knew he was a disaster then. And now...
That was my favorite part of the whole interview, because it's true. The majority of Canadians want a different government. The majority, I think the last poll showed that Liberals were going to be left with 6 seats. So they were going to lose, I think, 140 something seats. It's interesting, though. I'm still not seeing any comments from Twitter, but I know I have some watchers from Twitter. So if you're watching from Twitter, I wonder if it's just not showing up here. Because usually I get like tons and tons. I'm going to see if it's showing up. Oh, it could be too, because there's a few other live stream happening. Charlie Kirk. But even then, it's not showing it on my profile. Oh, yeah, it is now. I am seeing comments. I don't know why it's not showing up. Weird. So this is one of the comments. Okay, yes. Okay, Lynn, it is showing up. It's weird that it wasn't showing up in my mention but if I go on Twitter, it's showing up there. Am I being shadow banned? No, I'm kidding. So Hattie B said, good morning, Nadine. Watched this talk between these two men last week. Yes, welcome words from Poilievre. He actually talked about a lot of things. Someone did a post. I'm just going to go back to the regular. Someone did a post, though, that I saw this morning. I didn't bookmark it, but he said it's almost like there was a list of things that were given, of questions or topics that were okay. There wasn't a whole lot of talking about the controversial topics like the gender stuff or the woke ideology stuff or immigration, like to go really deep into it. It was like your typical, like usual talking points that Pierre already covers. I wish we would have seen a little bit more harder questions, especially in a forum like that. You normally would have an opportunity to really give your thoughts, and it's a long form forum, so you can actually sell your ideas to the public more than versus like a few minute snippet. So someone had those comments, and I agree. While I really like the interview, I like the format. I like how casual it made Pierre really likable. He did talk about a lot of stuff, but I just found there was no controversial, especially Jordan Peterson. And maybe that was the plan too, right? I know we always want politicians to say things the way we say them, or be as aggressive as we are, but we miss the concept that there's the Overton window that they have to work within. It's up to us, the public, to move that Overton window to sway public opinion in the direction that we want. That's our job. And media, or social media type of content creators, have that responsibility even more. If this is the kind, or activists, like I hate that word, but I'd be considered an activist. I work on swaying public opinion, on moving that Overton window. So government is downstream from society. If you want government to address certain things, you need to first get society to start demanding those things get addressed. And you're seeing that more and more happening in Canada and in the US, where I guess the right are getting more organized. And but I do wish in this particular instant, especially Jordan Peterson, he rose to fame because of his controversial, which is not controversial now, but his take on we shouldn't have forced speech. So somebody shouldn't force me to call them a different pronoun. That's forcing the speech of someone, which I completely agree with. So, but yeah, there was no talk about that. So just something I wanted to put out there. I agree with that person who posted it, and they're not an anti Poilievre person either. They just were hoping to see a little bit more of that in this forum, and maybe he's going to do more podcasts, more shows. I know that someone had said Pierre Poilievre should go on the Joe Rogan show, and I think it was the pleb that's posted that, and Elon Musk commented yes underneath. So we'll see. We'll see if that will happen. But and someone said Howard Go. I don't know, Gao. I don't know how to say your last name. Says, I'm celebrating this day like a birthday for my remaining years. I think everyone's celebrating. We just want Trudeau gone. Now the question is whoever's going to replace him going to be worse? Are they going to be Trudeau 2.0? And with how extreme that the Liberal Party has now become, I don't have high hopes that it's going to be like a middle ground, normal kind of person. I think it's going to be like a socialist 2.0 being pushed, but we'll see. I mean, maybe the party's realizing that they're losing interest when they're becoming the socialist party, the authoritarian party. I don't know, but it's going to be really interesting. Let's see what else. So yeah, if you haven't seen that interview, I highly recommend you do. What is next on? So I want to highlight someone
in Russia last year.
I'm just going to
400
pause this for a second. I gotta go through this. I'm going to highlight someone later. Constantine. He's from the UK, I believe. Where is he from? I'm just going to see. We were chatting on Twitter, messaging back and forth. I wanted to see if he would come on my show. I just gotta. Anyways, I've been listening to a lot of his stuff, and I really like his takes on things. So I'm going to set up notifications so I get notified of all his posts. But I'm going to share something we talked about before, like the free speech, the attack on free speech bill and stuff. But he talks about what's been happening in the UK, and now UK right now is getting a lot of attention. Okay, where is it now? I scrolled too far. Anyways, I asked him if he would come on my show, and he says, there it is. I just want to see where he's from. If somebody knows, write it in the comments. London, England. So England. He's from England. They're not a part of the U. Are they? Yeah, I think they're still. They were Brexit. I get confused with the whole Europe thing. But anyways, I asked him if he would come on the show, and he said that he's super booked right now, so he can't. But he was super nice about it. He says, but I wanted to message you back I wanted to reply to say thank you and also to encourage you to keep going. So he could have just ignored the message, but he responded back. So I thought that was impressive. But anyways, he talks here about the attack on free speech in the UK, and I want to share this video because I found this shocking. And I think you guys will too. But here we go.
In Russia last year, 400 people were arrested for things that they said on social media. 400 people in Russia. Obviously, this country is very different. How many people do you think were arrested in Britain for things they said on social media last year?
Come on.
Take a guess.
I have no idea.
3,300.
Really? Arrested for what they'd said on social media?
Yeah.
Really? What sort of things get you arrested?
Well, one example I give in my show is there was a young woman from Liverpool called Chelsea Russell. Her friend was killed in a car crash, 19-year-old woman. And she posted the lyrics of his favorite song on her Instagram, the lyrics. And it was a rap song, so the lyrics contained several instances of the N-word. Okay? She was arrested, prosecuted, found guilty, given 500 hours of community service and a fine, tagged, and for a year, she was under 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. curfew.
My goodness.
In Britain.
In Britain.
In 2018. In Russia.
So they talk about how Russia is authoritarian. One of the classic signal of an authoritarian government is that they silence free speech or political opposition or anything. And what was that number? Let's go back. 3,300. And Russia had 400. 3,300 people got charged and arrested. And I'm sure we would have something close to that here once that is it Bill C here. I'm just trying to attack. I don't want to get the bill name wrong. We've had so many we've been trying to raise awareness for. Bill C 63. Where is it at? I'm just trying to see where it's at in Parliament. There was the health one that we were trying to raise awareness to. There was posts that it had already been passed, but it hasn't yet. It's still in the process. So the bill is currently at second reading stage in the House of Commons. The latest activity was a debate at second reading on June 7th. So it's still in the House of Commons. So it's not getting passed. But if it was, I'm sure in Canada we'd be seeing, and there was some very, sorry, ChatGPT was trying to talk to me. There were some very troubling things in that bill because it wasn't just what you had said. There was also a part that cover of what you could potentially say as well. Okay, so Tony Knapp said is dead in the water, so it's not being passed. And okay, Mother of K-pop said, who is this person that you're asked to be on the show? So Konstantin, the guy that was just in this interview here, Konstantin Kisin. Yeah, this one here. Let's click on his profile so you get to see it. I want to play a video as well about, I watched this and his take on immigration, because we're going to talk about immigration because there's been a lot of controversy about immigration. I just clearly, just vaguely touched on it just at the beginning of this episode. I want to talk about the whole immigration conversation that has come up in the last couple weeks. And to be honest, I was shocked at the amount of racism that I saw online and also the people perpetrating it. you can be against illegal immigration. You can be against immigration that's not beneficial to a country. And you can be all of those things and not be racist. But some of the stuff that I saw online was openly racist, saying I'm against all immigration unless they're from Europe, unless they are white like us. So you're seeing a lot of that. Look, there's different things you can debate on if immigration is beneficial to a country, if the people who are immigrating here don't have the same culture. There is negative and positives about that. And I know some people will be like, what are some of the positives? I just found personally, I've met people who have different culture and different religion, different way of living that were completely different than mine. And some of the stuff I've actually really respected and admired. Some of the stuff, no, obviously. But and I myself have hired an immigrant in the past. So I have hired a Filipino nanny when I worked up north and we couldn't find anyone. Same thing, we had to struggle to find anyone. Here we live in the country and we travel. I travel, and I wanted someone who was living because it was just more ideal. And it's really hard to find someone who is willing, even if you pay a lot. Like I pay way more than minimum wage, and this still was very difficult to find. So, but I have mixed feelings on it. I think immigration, as long as it's beneficial for the country, then it's a positive thing. I don't think it's black and white. I don't think immigration today could be as beneficial as immigration 100 years ago. So, and Constantine talks about this, and I want to share this video that I listened to. This would have been a few months ago. I was on my way to Red Deer. I'm not going to show the whole video. It's 8 minutes and 53 seconds long, but I want to share this part because he talks about how we should approach this conversation, how we should approach this topic as conservatives in a way that it's really hard to cancel or attack. And I thought it was completely brilliant. And then I'll share some of my thoughts on why I think we're where we are as a picture into Canada right now. What are our issues? I've talked about it before, how our immigration system is completely broken. But anyways, I'll share this video. It starts at 4 minutes, 20 seconds in. It's just a coincidence. That's just when he started talking about it. But I think it's just really, really good. I won't play the whole rest of it, but if you have a chance, he has this posted onto his account. I can show you what it is. But I think it's really important how he addresses the topic. And then I'll start talking about what's been happening with Elon Musk and Vivek and what they've been talking about as well. So I'll just push play here.
The debate about immigration is as absurd as it is in the Western world, is that we're operating within a morality-based framing of the issue. As long as we continue to do so, we will continue to lose. What is the frame? Immigration is a good thing. Therefore, anyone who opposes immigration is a bad person. Once this framing is set, arguments are largely irrelevant. You can quote statistics, facts, figures till you're blue in the face, but all you'll ever be is an angry racist using numbers to support your immoral position. The only way to win this debate is to break the frame. The correct framing of this issue, like any other, is that immigration policy is a slider. You move it to the left when you need more immigration, and you move it to the right when you want less. Most Western countries have gone through periods when they were absolutely desperate for more people to come in. Australia, with which we began our discussion, responded to the end of World War II by deciding it must increase its population to avoid the threat of another invasion, and launched an immigration program under the slogan, "Populate or Perish." Britain too increased migration after the war, encouraging colonial people to take jobs that could not be filled by British people. Canada, the US, and many European countries have encouraged migration within living memory for perfectly good reasons. In other words, the attempt to present the history of our countries as one continual process of moving from a restrictionist past to a progressive utopia is not just inaccurate, it is purposefully misleading. This framing deliberately conceals the reality that the right level of immigration varies over time. It is therefore unwise and counterproductive to argue against immigration or for immigration. The correct frame is that immigration is good when it's good and bad when it's bad. And as before, all else follows. Once this framing is accepted, winning the remaining argument becomes simple. If immigration policy is about making sure that immigration is beneficial to our country, the correct number of illegal immigrants is 0. The arguments which are often made in the US about illegal immigrants doing jobs no one wants to are patently absurd. Many of the people who are desperate to do those jobs are waiting patiently for their visa application to be approved, and the only reason people enter the US illegally is that they know they won't be allowed in legally. In other words, illegal immigration is not beneficial to a country by definition. As for legal immigration, once you accept that the quantity and type of people allowed to come should depend on how beneficial they're likely to be to our country, given the current circumstances, the argument becomes even simpler. After decades of unprecedented levels of immigration, it is time to pause. Notice that you've heard all these arguments before, but in the new frame, they land differently. We're not against immigration. We do not hate immigrants. We, in fact, envisage circumstances in which we may well be delighted to welcome more people to come here. I'm proud that Britain has offered refuge to people fleeing Chinese tyranny in Hong Kong and the Russian invasion of Ukraine. What we're for is a sensible immigration policy, one that fits the realities of the present time. If you enjoy these monologues...
So basically he's saying this is the way we should be approaching the discussion on immigration. In Canada right now, it is not beneficial to continue allowing immigrants to move to Canada. Why is it not beneficial? We don't have the housing. It's creating a housing market crisis that's skyrocketed the prices of houses to the point where our children will probably never be able to own a home. And not only that, it's completely sent our healthcare system into a crisis mode because too many people are coming in and not enough of them are calculated high quality. And I don't mean that high quality as in people, high quality as educational and beneficial. You have a lot of refugees coming in who aren't necessarily doctors who can accommodate. So if you're bringing in 4 million, I think it's 4.9 million right now that are due to be sent back home. If you're not bringing in as many doctors to take care of those immigrants, then you're going to create a situation where they're going to depend on the current healthcare system that we have with the amount that we already have, which is already not enough. So you've created that whole crisis scenario with our healthcare system in Canada. So there's definitely a lot of negatives into continuing to bring in that many. They just took in too many in too short a period of time. We didn't have enough housing to accommodate that. And now it's created a situation in Canada that's causing inflation when it comes to the housing market. So what he says is you don't say all immigration is bad or all immigration is good. You say because of these scenarios, these circumstances, right now, immigration is not good. But there's been times in the past where it has been good. There's been times in the past where they brought in immigration to farm the Western provinces. Like if you look at my husband's, I guess, grandfather, his father's father, that family immigrated into Alberta to farm the land. They were from somewhere Norway, depends what tree of his family tree that you go, somewhere Norwegian, somewhere Ukrainian, or is it Ukrainian? Mennonite? Might not have been Ukrainian Mennonites. Some Scottish. So he's like a mix of all these different immigrants coming into Canada, and we wouldn't have the farming community, the farmland that's been cultivated since then if immigration hadn't been allowed. So you have other beneficial immigration when you're trying to incorporate or bring in the very highly qualified, highly trained people like doctors, nurses, and stuff, and you want to bring them from other country as long as their training is similar to the kind of training that we have in Canada. And if not, that we have systems in place to bring it to the same kind of level and we facilitate that, then I'm all for bringing in more doctors and nurses, especially when we have a crisis in our healthcare system. To say, oh, we should be training those people within Canada, I agree. But because we've had so much of those immigrants come in, we can't keep up. Our medical school can only take so many people, and we don't produce enough Canadian doctors, Canadian trained doctors, to accommodate the growing population. So you have to open it, or else you're going to have hundreds, like we're facing that right now. We have thousands and thousands of people in Canada that don't have access to a family physician. So that goes into the conversation that's been happening with Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. I think I said that name right, but the whole conversation was Vivek and Elon said we need to streamline the H-1B visa. So basically, people who are highly trained. So whether it's structural engineer or even not civil engineer, the tech engineer and doctors and stuff, they would fall under the H-1B visa. So my husband, as a doctor, could go and work in the US and get a green card easily because he has the education. Obviously, he's a family doctor, but not only that, he wrote the exams when he was applying for residency after he finished med school. He applied for some of them in the US. Mayo Clinic was actually one of the ones that was offering him a residency. And so he wrote all the exam and scored really high, especially from someone who was foreign trained. But so he would qualify to get a visa. Now, are you guys saying that we shouldn't be accepting doctors that are professionally trained doctors? And that's the whole conversation. You have people that saying no to any type of immigration. You have people who are saying no to any type of immigration that include people that aren't white. And that's actually been a conversation on Twitter by some of the, I guess the white nationalist type, the ones who say we don't want replacement theory, all of that. You're going to see that. And in my description, I said the far right section of the MAGA. And in any political movement, you have different section of a movement. Not everyone who's MAGA fits all these criterias that some people say, oh, you're not MAGA if you don't have that specific criteria. Even in the conservative movement, in the MAGA movement, there are very, very different ideas of what it means to be Make America Great Again. So immigration, is it a good or a negative? Right now, there's a lot of negatives in the US because of the open illegal immigration. In Canada is a little bit different. We're not necessarily a lot of illegal immigrant. They've all been allowed in by Justin Trudeau. So, but way too many. And so we have that issue where we need to figure out what we're going to do in Canada. Do I think some of these people are going to be deported? I don't know. I think that needs to happen on a massive scale if we're going to be successful. If not, the housing market, we're still short probably 4 or 5 years. So 4 or 5 years where we don't have enough homes, 4 or 5 years where we don't have enough healthcare. But there's also the whole aspect of population collapse. Our reproductive rate, so the replacement rate of babies being born to people dying of old age is actually a crisis in itself. We are not having the amount of kids that we should be having. We are not having the size of families we should be having to even keep up with the population. So if we close off all immigration completely, we will have a major crisis in Canada in the next few years. We are going to have population collapse. Now, I have thoughts on immigration that's beneficial, not beneficial. If you immigrate in people with very different culture, you also have issues where they don't assimilate into Canadian culture. And if you have so many that are coming in that you don't have the systems and program in place to assimilate them into Canadian culture, you run issues not just with the current Canadians, but with the newcomers as well. They're not equipped to assimilate. A perfect example of that would be when you have somebody who comes to, let's say, a country that they've never had to use heat in their home, whether it's Africa or the Middle East, they've never had to turn on a furnace, and you bring them in and you give them housing, but then you don't teach them how to use a furnace. You end up having people who use their clothes dryer to heat up the house. That then creates humidity in the house, mold in the house, but they wouldn't have known because they weren't taught, they weren't assimilated, they weren't given the proper resources to come into Canada and adjust to the culture. And not only that, if you bring in a lot and you don't have the other systems in place, and you're seeing that a lot where they'll kind of get amongst themselves and not like learn English because they'll have a community where enough people speak their language that they don't need to learn the language. Like you see that a lot in Vancouver. There's communities in Vancouver where you go, and I've been to places where no one speaks English, even though the main language in Canada is English. So whether it be Asian communities, I saw that. And so there's a lot of negatives that can happen when you open your borders in a massive way without proper plans to help them integrate into Canadian society. And you're seeing that as well with the I'm not trying to target any specific country, but right now you're seeing a lot of that with the immigration that's coming in from the Middle East, where they want to bring their own culture and enforce their own culture into Canada. You're seeing that a lot with the protests in the Free Palestine protests. You're seeing even in Hamilton, I think right now they're planning on having a caliphate conference. And the people who are holding it is actually a terrorist organization in, I think, like 10 countries. Just in Canada, they're not declared that, but they're having a conference on how to take over the world, how to take over Canada and bring in their politics. Now, can that be a negative thing? Yeah. If you have a country that gets opened up so much to the point where you get overtaken, and I say overtaken because you bring in millions and millions of people, they then start forming government. You're seeing that happening as well. They'll show up at nomination races with all of their community, and even though most of them are not legally able to vote in an election, they can still vote in a nomination election. So they'll pick an MP candidate, and they'll get them elected. I talked about that before. You're seeing foreign interference, and that's happening at a massive level, both at the provincial and the federal level. So there are definitely negative things. But there's also positive things too that come from immigration. And this whole it's black or white situation doesn't help anyone. And I think when we're looking at the conversations happening online, I think we need to call out the part that becomes very racist, which we saw in the last few weeks, and openly bragging about it and calling for it. So when I think about, I'm going to share an experience that I had. When I moved from, so I grew up in New Brunswick. We had almost no immigration where I grew up. It was very rare that you had someone with different colors of skin than you. You would have it more kind of within the universities. Students would come in, and it was a French university, so most of them would be French speaking. So from Haiti, from countries in Africa that are French speaking. So you'd have a little bit, but barely any. And we didn't have barely any from the Middle East. And what I grew up like in the time of 9/11, and I say this all the time. I would watch the media and I'd be completely brainwashed by the media. So just imagine, picture this: the only thing you've seen of people from the Middle East is that they're terrorists, and that all of their ideology is extremely dangerous to all Canadians. Like that's the brainwashing that was happening when I was in high school around the time that 9/11 happened. And I'd never been exposed to anyone from the Middle East or from Muslim or from India or Pakistan. I kind of all looped it in my mindset back then. And I'm talking about 2000 and in the year 2000 here. I moved out west to Calgary. It would have been in 2007. And for the first time in my life, I was exposed to the Middle Eastern culture. There's a lot of people from Pakistan, from India in Calgary. Everyone knows that. And so, but I remember being afraid, and I'm being open and honest with you guys. I remember being afraid of going to the mall, like the Marlboro Mall, because it was all immigrants in that mall. And I remember being afraid. And being afraid of Muslims. And then I started working for the federal government. And I worked with a Muslim guy. His name's Shiraz Mir. So if he's watching this, he's one of my favorite people that I've ever met. But I remember being afraid of him. And then him and I like started developing a professional relationship and became friends. I was invited over to go eat at his family's house. His wife made like wonderful Indian food. It was just phenomenal. They were some of the kindest people that I've ever met. And I remember shortly after I got transferred to Vancouver, and I was going there on a trip. And I think it's important to share these stories because it explains a different culture than yours that has actually some positive that we don't even have in our culture. But I remember going to Vancouver to check out where I was getting transferred to, and Shiraz knew I was going. And he said, "Hey, I have friends in Vancouver. If you want a place to stay, if you want to save money on hotel." And I said, "Sure." So I went there. And I had a lot of things that I was doing interviews and stuff. So, but anyways, I went, and then later that evening, I went and visited and stayed in this family's house, and they were friends of Shiraz, and I knew Shiraz was awesome. So I thought this will be great. And I remember thinking, wow, their like spare room is really nice. Like this looks like a master bedroom. I wonder if like every room in the house is like this. And come to find out in the morning, I was given the master bedroom. So they stayed in another room in the house. In their culture, when you have a guest that comes, they consider a gift from God, from Allah, and you give them the best room in the house. Like in our culture, we would never do that. Can you imagine having a stranger come stay at your house and you're giving them your master bedroom? We would never do that. But I just remember thinking, wow, like that's the level of respect that they have, even for a random stranger. And I just in awe about this story. And I thought to myself, well, maybe we could learn a thing or two about respecting the guests, the strangers that come into your house. And I say this because my perspective was completely changed from when I grew up in New Brunswick, from being brainwashed by media to having one-on-one personal relationship with people of a complete different culture, complete different faith than me. Are there negative aspects of some of that faith? Yes, they're the extremists, and I'm not saying those don't exist. But I don't want to live in a world where we judge our interaction based on the worst of society. And I don't think we should. Should we have some concern about some of the extremism that we're seeing in Canada? Yes. Canada has been an open door for some of the most extreme terrorists. And I've posted about that. It's actually well known around the world. This is where they go to hide. We need to stop that. We need to change that. We need to deal with the legal avenues that we have on dealing with this hatred and this violence that we're seeing happening with some of these protests. If somebody's flying a terrorist flag in a protest, that's actually an illegal offense in Canada. Why aren't these people being charged and dealt with it within our legal system? When you have a terrorist organization that's trying to do a conference on how to take over Canada, that should be something that should be stopped. So, but at the same time, I don't like what I'm seeing online. I don't like what I'm seeing from, and I say the far right sector of the MAGA movement because that's the only way I can explain it. There's no one more far right than them. So, and this whole, we're only going to allow immigration if they have a certain pigment of skin. I don't think that's right, and I think it should be called out. So, and I think Elon Musk is taking a reasonable approach to immigration. And I'm going to share some of his tweets here because I kind of went through, I just basically searched a bunch of what he's saying, and I agree with what he's saying. Here, I don't support open immigration policy at all. I support highly selective immigration policy. Immigration should be limited to those who will obviously contribute far more than they take. If we take that aspect of it, if they're going to contribute more than they take, I think that's a reasonable, common sense approach to immigration. Another thing, I just basically searched immigration because I wanted to see like the general content of what he was saying. Legal immigration of talented, hardworking, and honest people will be expedited in this administration. So there's the other aspect of it taking forever. Riley Gaines talks about this because her husband, who came to school and they met in school, they got married, they've been married for 2 years. I won't play the video, but you can go and listen to it. If you just search immigration under Elon Musk, it should come up. But she says it's been extremely difficult. And it should, to get American citizenship. But when you have like a doctor and you're in need of doctors, we should be able to allow it in. Is it getting abused? Yes. You have people who are using H-1B to hire like farm help or things like that, when obviously those would be jobs that Americans could fill. But even that, like we have a farm, and my husband has a farm. If you talk to any farmer, one of the hardest thing for filling jobs in the farming area is to find like farm help. And because it's such a short period of time, it's not a year-round job. It's really hard to fill those jobs because most people have like full-time jobs throughout the year. So to find someone to fulfill that need for a short period of time, that's why there's so much benefit to allowing legal immigration. So short-term work permits from people who in their zone, there's no farming. So let's say it's like the opposite, like in their area it's now winter and now we're summer, we need the farm help. So you kind of intermix. You're seeing that too, like with like Australia and Alberta for the skiing. Australia and Alberta kind of intermix. So Canadians go there in their winter, or it would be summer, I guess. And then Australian comes to Banff to help out. So because they're opposite season. So I can see that in some aspects. But anyways, Elon's saying we need to expedite it for like the top tier, like smartest people in the world. And I don't understand why America wouldn't want to have the best and brightest of the world to help them become the superpower that they are. Same with Canada. We should want the best and brightest. Should we be creating some too? Yeah. But what else? Some of it goes a bit further. So this was all being talked about. A whole bunch of accounts were trying to cancel Elon and saying he shouldn't be a part of Dodge. Same thing with Vivek. Basically, they were trying to say, cancel him, get rid of him. He's a problem. I want to address this because I find us conservatives tend to do this so much. And I've talked about this in the past. We'll say, we'll go to a politician. So I'll give you a perfect example. I'll compare it to the left versus the right. The left will go to a politician, let's say a conservative politician, and they'll give them a list of 10 things that they would like that politician to do. And that politician will look at the list and he'll say, I can't do these 9 things, but this one thing I can do. And So the politician will do that for the other side, and they will celebrate him. They'll give him donations. They'll put him on a pedestal for doing that one thing. And then that politician thinks, well, maybe I can do another thing on that list. Now, us on the right will go to politicians with 10 things, and they'll do 9 of those things on the list. And then that one thing that they didn't do or they didn't say it the right way, we will completely attack them and cancel them and not give them the time of day. You're seeing that so much happening on the right. Why? Well, we tend to think that in individualistic terms. So we tend to think that all individuals should be the answer to all the problems. We internalize into the solutions being at an individual level, versus the left will often be more collectivist. So they'll think as a greater good. So maybe we won't get this done today, but for the greater good, we'll just keep working towards that agenda and we'll eventually get it. And anyways, we're our own worst enemy quite often when it comes to things like this. And I'm not saying Elon Musk is a hero or a savior or anything, but we have to recognize the good he has done for the conservative movement as a whole. I don't think we would have seen the win in the election that we saw if Elon Musk didn't help President Trump. I don't think we would see the pressure and the changes being made at the UK level when it comes to the gang rapes if Elon Musk wasn't bringing attention to it. We would not have free speech in Canada if it wasn't for Elon Musk buying Twitter. How many of you remember all the accounts that got suspended, canceled, because we wouldn't even have the gender conversation that we're having right now and the wins that we're having right now in Canada, in Saskatchewan, if Twitter hadn't been bought out, because there would have been no conversations happening. They weren't allowed on Twitter, the old one. They're allowed on X. And to completely cancel someone because they like, I just find it so ridiculous. They're trying to cancel Elon Musk because he's saying, hey, we should allow immigration of the most talented, smartest people who want to come to the US, like doctors, engineers, stuff. We should allow that so we can become the true superpower we could be. The idea that they're canceling him and saying he's no good for nothing is that classic case of he's done 9 things out of that list, and the one thing he's done that you don't like, then you're just going to cancel them. And you're seeing that even within the conservative movement with conservative voices. Not everyone is going to agree with what I have to say. There will be things you won't like that I believe in or think. We're not going to think the exact same way. I don't think the exact same way as Elon Musk. A perfect example is like Tucker Carlson. I agree with a lot of what he says when it comes to his attack on Jews. I don't agree with that, but I agree with the other stuff. Am I going to cancel him and stop listening to what he has to say? No, because I recognize there's not going to be a single commentator out there that I agree 100% with all of their views. And we need to stop having this purity test where politicians or a conservative voice or somebody in the movement, if they don't fit every single one of your check marks, then they're evil and they're bad. They're part of the bad people. Like, we'll never get anything accomplished. We'll never get anywhere. We'll always keep losing if we do that. So this is a perfect case of that. Okay, let's see what else I have to chat about. The show's already gone longer than I thought, so I'll just see what else I missed. But yeah, if you don't follow Konstantin Kisin, this guy here, I'll just share his profile again. I highly recommend you do. You've probably seen some of his videos. He's done quite a bit of good work, and one of them that was really good was he was in front of like all these politicians, and he was talking about climate change and that whole conversation. And he said, I don't know if you remember this video, but he said, if you ask any parent that if they need to press a button and it's going to put a little bit of CO2 in the earth, but pressing that button means my child's going to get food, going to get a roof over their head, every single parent would press that button. That video, anyways, he's one of my new kind of favorite people to follow. So I highly recommend you do. And I just like his common sense approach to things. Oh, another thing. So I haven't fully confirmed this, but Laura Stone, she's on CTV Power Play. So I'm just going to share this. So she wrote this. She's with Globe and Mail. Anyway, she wrote something. I haven't fully looked into this, but I find this shocking. So she says Ontario has approved the transition of 9 supervised drug sites that are within 200 meters of schools and childcare center into the homeless and addiction recovery treatment hubs. They're in Toronto, Ottawa, Hamilton, Kitchener, Guelph, and Thunder Bay. So right now you have 9 supervised drug use sites that are within 200 meters of schools and child care center. I find that so shocking. But anyways, this report is saying that they're going to transition them into addiction recovery treatment hubs. So I'm not 100% sure what that looks like, but I guess it's better than supervised drug use sites. But the fact that these are within 200 meters of schools and child care centers, I find that shocking. I think there should be a law put in place that you can't have these types of sites anywhere near schools or parks or daycare. But anyways, that was one of the things I wanted to just bring some attention if you're someone who knows much about that. Oh, sorry, I've been talking so much. I got a lot of comments here, so I'm just going to see if Okay, Hattie said, radical Islamist groups aren't just violent, they're organized, strategic, and very well funded. They're smart. They think in the collectivism way of thinking. So they think long-term goal, and I'm talking about the radical ones. They think it's a long-term goal. Let's all immigrate to Canada, form government, and then eventually our ideology will be imposed onto Canadians because we'll be the majority. Like that's actually in the Caliphate plan. Like Antifada, like if you look at what they believe on a grand scale of things, especially on the extremist side of it, they do want to take over the world and impose Islam and Sharia law on the entire world. It's a part of their belief system. So the same way like Christians want the entire world to hear about Jesus, the only difference is we don't force people to believe in Jesus or to become Christian. We know it's a free will choice that they have to choose Jesus Christ for themselves, versus in Muslim, it's different. It's either you convert or you're going to be like a slave, or you're going to be forced to pay a specific tax, or some of it you be beheaded. Like the radical part of it actually believe that. So hence the word radical. Remember, this is their faith and they're passionate for. And what I don't understand is why we can't even talk about that. I saw another video this morning and I wish I had bookmarked it, but it was when I was like doing something else. And it was a lady had gone to this event, and this lady, she's Jewish. She's been talking a lot about the Jewish stuff. And she said, the Muslim lady who was there said, there's a lot of Muslims that are really good and that are very much for peace, don't want any war. And the lady answering, the Jewish lady said, yes, 75% of Muslims are not radical extremists. They are peaceful. The problem is it doesn't take a big percentage of people to do the World Trade Center, to do the October 7th, to do the New Orleans attack that just happened, or the attack in, I think it was in Germany, the Christmas market. Like it just takes a small percentage. So even if 15% are extremists, 15% is still what, how many millions? Like 200 and some million people on earth. And when you think about it, that's something we should be concerned about. especially if the more extremist side of it believes that you should murder all Christians, all those who aren't Muslims. And some do believe that. Like a lot of them believe that. And we can't even talk about that because then we're saying it's Islamophobia. You know what? I don't like the idea that someone believes that I have less value as a human because of my faith. It could be any religion. I don't like any religion who believes that human has less value because of any aspect. I believe all humans are equal. And and so I'm not afraid. I don't know anyone who would be okay with that. And we should be able to talk about it. We should be able to talk about the extremist protests that are flying terrorist flags in Canada and say this is really bad for Canada. We should be able to talk about the extreme hatred that we're seeing in the direction of Jewish people in Canada that don't even feel safe to go into schools. The fact that their schools, not just the universities, but the schools are being shot at, targeted, their synagogues are being targeted. We should be able to talk about that without having, oh, you're Islamophobe. Like I said, I have some friends who are Muslims. They're not the extreme part of the Muslim group, but there are some. And the fact that we're too afraid to talk about it or address it is a problem that's only going to get worse in Canada. And I think it needs to be discussed. Okay, what's the next? Okay, Teresa says, why can't we develop our own talent, lower social support for people that should be working, incentivize work, and stimulate creativity? I agree. We've created a situation in Canada where we don't have the innovation that we used to have, because a perfect example of that is the CERB. The government paid everyone to do nothing, and then we have a population that's completely unmotivated, that stifled innovation, that stifled wanting to accomplish something. COVID had a huge impact on that. People don't dream like they used to dream. And how do we do that in Canada? I think it's going to take several generations. I think, but in the meantime, we're in a crisis scenario, so we need to look at potentially bringing in that quality top talent from other places in the world. I saw a video too that makes me kind of see things and evaluate things a little bit. Sorry, I just realized I still had that old tweet on. We're not talking about that, but it talked about how when you open up like America or Canada to the top tier of the education, like people who are extremely brilliant, and you're bringing them into Canada, it leaves that country with less of those people. So that country therefore continues to go downhill. So the people who would be best set to help their country thrive are now moving out of that country, and that country is getting worse and worse in their situation. So you have that aspect of it too. When you open it, then all of the high quality educated, like there's another term, not just education, but there's also specific specific set of skills, then you're bringing them to the Canada and the US, and it leaves those countries less worse off, and they become more and more of a third world country. So you're seeing that happening a lot. So like I said earlier, like Constantine said, it's not black and white. There are times where immigration can be good, and there's time where immigration can be bad. It's not, and he said it best. Like, we've taken the moral position that if you're against immigration, you're bad. No, there are times where immigration will be bad. There are times it'll be good. It's not black and white. We don't just need skills, we need quality people. So this is what Teresa said. We don't just need skills, we need quality people. I agree. And there is something to be said about immigrating in people who have similar culture to us, like Western culture, that believe in freedom, that believe in the things that Canada believes in. We had a discussion on a Twitter space I don't always go on Twitter Space, but it was actually a quite good discussion on what it means to have people similar culture. What is Canadian culture, and what is Canadian values? Like, if we say we want people who are kind of like Canadians, what does that mean? Like, what does that look like? And there, in that Twitter Space, there was some stories share of good Canadian values and Canadian culture. And some said, oh, it's hockey, all that superficial stuff. But one guy said, it's when you are stranded roadside and you got stuck, that someone will stop and see if you need help. That's a Canadian value. That's a Canadian culture thing. And he listed some good ones, and he listed some bad ones. And even Canadians, like, who've lived here forever have done things that are anti-Canadian culture. COVID was a perfect example of that. How many people were so mean and nasty and unkind, unfriendly, unwelcoming. And we're seeing that even more nowadays. I don't think we've recovered from COVID, but anyways, let's see what else I had here to talk about, and then I'll end the show soon. I getting more organized. Ooh, I will touch this really quickly. The whole cyber truck blowing up at the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas, and the kind of story behind that. That guy who, oh, what's his name? I'm trying to find. Is it Michael? He was on. There was a Sean Ryan episode. My husband and I. Okay. there, there's so much to talk about. How do I zone in and focus? So my husband and I watched the interview, the Sean Ryan interview. Sean Ryan just before said something, we're going to go into hiding, like almost like what he was going to talk about in the interview was going to put his life in danger. So we're like, oh, it must be really good. Here, I'm going to see if I can bring it up. So Sean Ryan had someone, oh, I never get the spelling right. Has someone on his show who got an email from this guy. I'm just seeing if I can bring it up here. He did a post basically saying that he was going to go into hiding for a bit. I want to bring it up because I want to talk about this. And then he did some Twitter Spaces. I didn't watch the Twitter Spaces. Any of you guys watch the Twitter Spaces? I'm just trying to find it. So this guy, Matt, I think that's his name. Sorry, there's so much he's done, but I want to get to that post. Where he basically says he's going into hiding. Oh, come on. Did he delete it? Oh, he's posted a lot of things. Okay, this is it. I'm going to share it with you. So if you don't follow Sean Ryan, he does podcasts. A lot of the people he has on are like army linked people. He's had like quite a few. It's a pretty big show. I would say he's one of the top like 10 shows in America. Joe Rogan being probably number one. He'd be like maybe even the top 5 for viewership. My husband watches his stuff a lot. He really likes army stuff. So my husband is really a huge fan of Sean Ryan. But anyways, he posts this. My family and I are disappearing for a few days. My account will be active, but I will not be me behind the wheel. What we are about to release is mind-boggling and will raise a lot of questions. All media requests need to go to my producer. So the thoughts, my husband and I, oh my gosh, he must be releasing something that's going to like be putting his life in danger. And what it was, he was interviewing Sam Shoemate, who has an Instagram account where a lot of whistleblowers send him stuff on stuff that happens in the army. He tries to hold people accountable. I did watch I listened to it, but there's a few things that I'm like, that I profile people, so I'm like looking at first I was just listening, and then I'm like, I want to see what this guy looks like, see if his body language. So I couldn't do a full profile because I didn't watch it. I just listened to it. I was driving. My husband had it on. So, anyways, so we're listening to it. There's a lot of things that like seem credible, but there's a few things I'm like, I don't like this read that I'm getting from this guy. It wasn't like 100%. So it's almost like embellishment could have been happening in there a little bit, and almost like defensive talk too. But anyways, I like Sean Ryan. Usually he's pretty credible. When he's made mistakes in the past, he's come on and openly addressed it, like done a video just to address, hey, I was error there. Some people said I find that his especially now that he's gotten so big, he should be confirming his sources a little bit more. And I agree. I think, but in this situation, I think it was so urgent. He kind of wanted to jump on this story, maybe before someone else. And it is a pretty big story that the guy who apparently exploded the truck, apparently, we don't know yet. That's something that's talked in the episode, but apparently he was trying to blow the whistle on some of the stuff that happened in Afghanistan, basically airstrikes that occurred that weren't in drug houses that the UN said shouldn't have happened. He was also apparently blowing the whistle on drone and what was happening with the drone. He also mentioned there were some airstrike capacity item. What's it called? Basically, not bombs, but things crossed the border that had the potential of shooting down planes. So I don't know what it's called. If you know the name, write it in the comments. But basically, he's saying that there's a few of that have crossed the border. They don't know where they are. There was concern about that being targeting Trump, where they could shoot down his plane. They could technically shoot down any plane. So targeted missiles, I think they're called. Anyways, if you know the term, say it in the comments. So do I think that this guy believed all of this? Yes. Do I think there might be some truth to it? Probably. I just find there's so many unanswered questions. The whole his kid not having the same DNA as him. Well, was it him in the car? They said he was shot with like this gun, but if you see the video, there's still someone alive. The bombing happens and you can see the person in the car. Was that him? Was that someone else? Were they dead? I don't know. There's so many unanswered questions. However, this is my take. Sean Ryan has usually been pretty credible, pretty honest, very trustworthy. There's some people who are calling him an agent. He goes against the grain. So I don't think when you're taking those attacks while you're going against a grain doesn't usually go in line with someone who's an agent. Usually they'll always go in with the flow of things, but there are such a thing as controlled opposition. We know that happens. I just don't get that read from Sean Ryan. I don't get that read like that. When I profile him, he comes across as very genuine. I mean, some people can fool me. I'm not 100% on my read, but I've always had a really good read from Sean Ryan, that he was authentic, real, and honest. And I've seen him show credibility even in times where it would have been better if he had not said anything. But he's like, no, I want to make this right on the record, kind of thing. So I don't think he's a paid shill. So, but then again, I've some people have accused me of being an agent and still an RCMP officer, even though I'm not. But yeah, it's really interesting to see all the unanswered question. And I think because the government is being they're not giving out a lot of information. There's a lot of what ifs happening or conspiracies that could potentially very well be true that are coming out and being talked about and stuff. So I just thought it was an interesting interview. It's apparently there's been more released since. So apparently this guy has reached out to a whole bunch of other people requesting to go on their show, and this was all before January 1st. It's going to be interesting. Also, Elon Musk said that he was sending a team to retrieve the video. So I'm curious if that video is going to be released in the future as well. So I'm going to keep watching it, keep an eye on it. So far, like I said, this guy Sean Ryan was interviewing, like he does seem like credible, but he also, there's a few things that I see him do where I think, oh, it could be a bit of embellishment to, like, this is a big deal to go on Sean Ryan podcast. I could see him like trying to exaggerate a little bit to make it, to prop himself up. Like, not big things, just little things, but yeah, it's interesting to see what's going to happen with that explosion. Sorry, I'm just looking to see what else he's released since. What are your thoughts? Do you guys think that the guy's still alive? Because they hinted at that during the show, that the DNA didn't match his son. Could be that he found out his son wasn't really his, or it could be that it was somebody completely different. It was in a Cybertruck, which can be self-driven. So, but someone else said that, I don't know, it monitors to see if there's movement, if you're not paying attention while it self-drives. But then again, I've seen someone caught, like in Saskatchewan, they were sleeping at the wheel while the vehicle was self-driving itself from Calgary to Saskatoon. So, I don't know. What do you guys think? I do like Sean Ryan. I do like a lot of the guests that he's brought on that I've found very interesting. So he's talking about a whole bunch of handle too, that we're sending stuff. Oh, someone said that the email was showing, and I commented on it. The email was showing like spell errors and stuff. The email that Sean Ryan presented, that was a redacted email, so they had to go in and redact some of the stuff to protect the names of the agents still working for the agency, or the Green Beret Force, or whatever you want to call it. So obviously it's not the original email. They had to go in and redact it. I don't think he added things to it or made things up. It doesn't fit what I've seen of him. But if you're redacting and taking names out, I could see that showing up there. But anyways, it's interesting though to see all the things. And I like how he's showing all the receipts. So if you go on his profile, he's showing a lot of the stuff. Now, what's my take on the interview? Look, we can all have like paranoid days. I've had my share. I remember during COVID, there were times where I'm like, "Oh, is the government like listening to my phone calls?" Because I would talk about something with someone and then it would come up somewhere else and I'm like, "Ugh, how did they know that? How did they strat?" Like, just some of these little things. I remember like having paranoid days where I'm like, I need to stop using regular phone and just use Signal. And some of you probably are, that's your status quo day to day. Right now, I couldn't care less if they listen to me. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. But I remember having paranoid days where I wanted to have a chat with my father-in-law. I'm like, this is not one of those conversations I want to have like on the regular phone. so I can get that. But to say that, oh, me and my family are going to go into hiding because of this episode, we watched the entire episode. I kept waiting for that one thing that I thought, okay, that could mean you should go into hiding. I didn't find any of that. So maybe he said that because he wanted people to watch it and get the information, just to make it seem like, oh, what is going to be said in this interview is so big, so important that we need to go into hiding. I didn't see that. So I was actually disappointed. But again, he could have just been having a paranoid day. I've had those. But yeah, Maybe I'm just like not getting it because I'm not in that world where they've been, like with the Green Beret, CIA, all of that. I thought, come on, Sean. Like, this is not like you release information that the government's going to need to kill you now. Like, you've given all this information to the FBI already. So, and then there was another part of the show too that I found. There was a bit of a, you can almost sense a vendetta against some of the people he was like mentioning, which we don't know any of these people. They're not big names to us, but he was naming personally certain people, and I'm thinking, and they're still employed there. They're still working with the agency or whatever, the Green Beret and stuff. And I'm like, oh, I almost sounded a bit like vengeful, like I'm gonna name these people. So because they did me wrong or whatever. I don't know. It's just a little bit of a read that I had. I was like, ugh, you could have just kept those names out. I don't think it would have changed anything. But yeah. Anyways, it's going to be interesting to see what will come out of it. If there's going to be more details released, if Elon Musk is going to release the video from inside the cab. I just recently saw this morning a video where you see the explosion. You see like a figure in the driver's seat. So that wasn't released before. So we'll see what will happen. Anyways, this episode's gone long enough. Wow, we have 769 people watching live right now. So if you've stayed for the whole thing, thank you. I always get shocked at when I look at the stats, how many people watch the entire thing. I'm like, don't you get tired of listening to me? But the whole purpose of this show is to create content, and then we're hoping to do short videos of the show where I talk about certain things and release short videos. We're just working on finalizing that. So I'm working with a team on helping figure out the best way. So I had a lot of help actually last week. So we should be starting to release like daily, like 3, 4, 5 short clips of the episodes. I think I've had like 20 so far. So we've got a lot of content to work with. But so we're hoping to do that. So you won't have to listen to the whole thing. But if you have, thank you. And feel free to comment. Like, I want this show to be an interaction with people. Like I said, like in my lifetime, I've changed my perspective on things. It's not flip-flopping. I've just learned more information and changed my perspective after learning more information. And that happens the best when you have people interacting maybe with different ideas or different opinions and different thoughts. And I'm willing to change my perspective. Like I said, I've said in the past, I used to be on the left. I used to be I would even consider me like more not a far lefty. I would consider myself middle left in the past. And my perspective had changed when I saw what liberal left policy does to society, does to human nature, what socialism does to human nature. It stifles innovation, it stifles creativity, it stifles growth. When society is given everything they need to survive, they're not going to strive to do more. And yeah, as I got older, as I got more informed, I've gone from being on the left to being a conservative. I wouldn't consider myself far right. I don't believe in the whole white nationalism. I don't believe in all immigration is bad. um, I do still consider myself middle right. I am more libertarian than I would say collectivism. There's been a lot of talk about the woke right, and what that looks like, and we're seeing definitely a lot of that. I actually am hoping to get James Lindsay to come talk on the show, talk about it. He'd said yes. We just haven't nailed down a time, but I would consider myself more libertarian, even though I have Christian values, and I do believe that sin is sin. I believe in free will. I believe people can choose for themselves what they want to do with their life, as long as it's not affecting someone else's free will and freedom. So because of that, like that, I would describe my political leaning with exactly that. If you're hurting a child, if you're hurting children, I'm against that. If you're not hurting anyone and you choose to do bad things, as long as you're not hurting anyone, that's your own choice. The problem that I have is when someone's freedom starts affecting someone else's freedom, like somebody who's on a drug binge all the time doing all these home invasion and break-ins. They're affecting someone else's freedom to or human right to be safe and be right to property and all of that. So that's where I would sit politically, more of a libertarian, but still understand that human nature is is evil at its core. The only reason we have any good, I don't think, is because we are good. I think it's we start being good when God starts working in our lives. And I think evil is the absence of God. And that's why we have so much evil in the world. We've given the authority to the enemy, the devil, and taking God out of everything. And that's why we're seeing so much evil. And yes, some people will say even religious people will do bad things, but that's not God. That's religious people that do bad things. They say it's in the name of religion, but it's not. It goes against the word of God. So, but yeah, Happy New Year. G-Lo said Happy New Year. Yes. Oh, what? And I'm going to be done soon. What are you guys' New Year resolution? Anyone have any fun New Year's resolution? I don't. I usually do. I guess weight loss would have been the ones in the past, but I'm already on my way to that. I started doing carnivore diet. This would have been 4 or 5 weeks ago now. Anyways, it paused a little bit during the Christmas holiday because I got really, really sick with like a stomach bug. So everything that I ate, which was all meat, just before getting sick, I had a food aversion to. So I wasn't able to eat meat for about a week because I wasn't able to eat much anyways. I was so sick. But I got it from my son. He had it about a week before. So yeah. So I'm back on carnivore now. So I still stuck to it sort of. Just I did allow like some veggies and stuff, but I still stayed kind of keto. But yeah, what are your New Year's resolution? I don't have any. I didn't do one this time. But anyways, I'm going to let you guys go. I will be back tomorrow, hopefully around 12, and I will see you guys tomorrow.